I'm Barbara Romero. I'm with the first graders. I'm their teacher.
Okay.
And my name's Mary Ellen Toy. I'm kindergarten teacher.
Okay.
Freddy Cardenas, principal.
Mia Toya, second grade teacher. Today we're going to look at my pre-assessments for the end of the unit assessment, which we just started Unit 5. So this is their pre-assessment. And what I want, it's 4 pages, but we're not going to grade all of them. We're only going to do 3 things. So if you look at your exemplars that I've given you, so on the first page, I expect them to fill out the graph. So on here, your number 1 is going to be the 25, 30, and then the 50. That's what I expect for them to know. So if they got all 3 correct, then it's a benchmark. If they only got 2 out of the 3, it's partial. If they only got 1 or nothing at all, then it's not meeting benchmark. So I expect them to know all 3 of those. And then if you turn to the next page, we're going to disregard the back of that, but if you look at the pattern on page M16, I expect them to continue the pattern, which is circle, square, circle. So that's going to be number 2. Benchmark, if they filled in the rest of the pattern. If they got some of it correct, partial, nothing, then not meeting benchmark. On the last page, M17, same thing, just the graph. I just want to make sure that they put moon at the end to continue the pattern. So that'll be number 3 on your score sheet. We're doing patterning, looking at patterns, AB patterns, ABC patterns. So the standard is we're looking at patterns. And they can count by 2s, like 1, 2, yeah, skip counting by 2s, identifying a pattern, that's skip counting by 2s, skip counting by 5s, and skip counting by 10s. Okay, so I have the tests all numbered, so I'll give each one 1, 2, 3. Put the shape down. And some of the students the other way around, they just put the word, so that's still okay.
You know, it's a lot of them didn't do it.
Yeah, a lot of them didn't fill it out. Oops. So this tells me that they weren't familiar with patterns.
Or reading directions. Maybe.
We're going to review, we're going to go through each form and see how we rated them, whether they're benchmark, partial, or not meeting, okay?
We all agree.
See if we, and then what we do is we agree or we don't agree. And we could come to a consensus. And then ideally is we identify which kids need help, or if we see that maybe there was something with instruction that needs to be updated, then we fix that. So
Again, this is a pre-assessment.
Yeah, so Mia?
Um,
Student number 1, Mia.
P.
Okay, student number 1.
Oh, are we going to do all letters?
Yeah, you should go up.
P, B, N?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Same for me. PBN.
PBN,
same PBN.
PBP.
Okay, so let's look at, he didn't have anything.
I made a mistake. I got just either for
Sorry,
one.
confusing for
Okay.
a while.
Number 2, what do you have, Mia?
B, B, B.
BBB.
Same,
Same, okay. Student 3,
P, B, B.
okay,
same,
Same,
same. 4,
P, B, B.
same.
same.
okay.
7.
Student 7,
So the second one,
Okay, okay.
It was, it didn't have anything there, that's why. We're just
I
looking
don't
at
know,
the
you know,
pattern.
but when I looked at, I was looking at the reading, I'm not supposed to be doing
Yeah.
that, but I saw that and it was like,
Yeah, and if you look at it here, well, what I'm looking at is if they continued the pattern.
Elementary. too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the most basic, like
Okay,
here,
so-
the 11th shape, I mean, it took a little bit more to figure out the 11th shape. But it's kind of funny how, I don't think they read, like you said, they didn't know to continue the pattern, like here is a shape pattern. If the pattern keeps going on the same way, what will the 11th shape be? So pretty much nowhere, it really didn't tell them to continue the pattern. It went straight to the 11th shape is a square, which they figured out, and then they explained.
I think that was what we saw in all of them, because a lot of the
Yeah.
students didn't
Yeah,
fill out the little graph, I guess you
Yeah.
call it, a table.
Okay.
the table.
Okay, number 8,
8, PBN.
you've got, there's quite a few kids that had ends, and why do you think that?
Because this is a brand-new concept that we're learning. So the one that I would be concerned of if there were a bunch of ends would be problem number 1, because we've been working on filling out tables. So we've been working on tables, T-charts, about like how many floors, like the first floor has, if there's 3 connecting cubes, there's 3 rooms on the first floor. And then you add another floor, there's 6 rooms now for on 2 floors. So this, I was expecting them to all have Bs. A lot of them got Ps because they didn't get this 10th floor. So there's a break, and we've been talking about the break, and then how do we figure out what's on the 10th floor? So there's different strategies that we've been using.
A lot of them just kept going on,
Yeah.
counting by 10,
Yes.
so they wrote 35.
See, they didn't even acknowledge the break right there. They went 25, 30, and most of them had 35 there.
Right,
So that's kind of disappointing to me, but also it tells me that's an area I need to work on.
well, it's a pre-assessment, right?
Yeah, but this part is,
That should have been on.
this should have been something that they knew.
When they were filling it out, did they have cubes to work with, or they can draw pictures?
They could draw pictures, most of them use their number line, or see here, we're skip counting by 5s. And for that, they like skip count on their fingers, and they know 10, if it's 10, then 5, 10, 15, 20, all the way, or a lot of them use their number line, or a lot of them use their hundreds chart.
When you, at their level now, when they're going to start the assessment, do you all read the directions and then all the pages as a whole group? Or you just leave it to them to read
No,
everything?
I leave it to them, and if they're stuck on a word, they raise their hand, and I come around, and then I help them with the word. And then if I notice that there's a word or something that, like a lot of kids don't understand, then I'll freeze them, and then I'll talk about whatever the problem is, and then we'll discuss it, or tell them what's expected, and then they all get to work. But most of it, they're able to read on their own.
For now, we're still in first grade, reading it as a whole group. Then I sent them back to their tables, their desks. And then I say, I want to hear you read the directions before you start. You can't start until you read, so that's good for me to know, to let them know you're not going to be helped when you get into second like that. As a whole group, you're responsible to read, so make sure you read on your own when they get to their desks area.
Well, I wouldn't really say that you're not gonna get help. I mean, don't tell them that. Don't
yeah, but.
kind of
They-
say,
they
well,
need
now
to be
you're in first
responsible.
grade, and I'm helping you. I'm trying to read all the directions, because there's big words in here that aren't first grade level. But eventually, when you get onto second or third, you're gonna have to be reading the directions
Yeah.
more on your own.
Just to reinforce that it's
Yeah.
their responsibility to read those directions at their table areas.
But again, like, we're not assessing how much they can read. We're assessing on if they know the concept or not.
But
So there's-
following directions, you can see is a big part of it too.
And then even like on the park, they have to read everything themselves, and they have to figure out everything on their
Yeah.
own. So, yeah, there's that scaffolding that we're already doing right now.
The good thing is it's a pre-assessment, so you have 6 students that missed the whole concept. And then you have 12 of them that were partial, meaning they all missed the last one. So you can identify what that anticipatory set, you can see who's going to anticipate who's having trouble.
Yeah, on
and
this
then-
last one.
And how can you help them at the beginning? How would you address?
But having them
Instruction.
in the previous grades, you know that they're good with patterns.
I know, yeah, I noticed that because
Just
when
that-
I saw that, just like, because we did a lot of pattern in first grade and they just knew the ABC pattern and AA, whatever, I was surprised that those were blank.
It's just
But
not
what you
stopping
said-
to think about the
Yeah, but
directions.
what she said that there's nothing written here and then she didn't read the directions with them, but some assumed, like maybe two did them,
Yeah,
but
there
the
was-
others
there was
did.
too much
But what
assumption.
I just noticed that they read but they knew what was
Yeah.
gonna be on there, but it's
Yeah.
just that they didn't do that part.
I was just focusing on the first problem. That's where you had the 12, the 6 kids that were not meeting the standard, and then you had 12 that were partial. So you had 18 kids that missed that one, just the first problem, because she said she taught it before. She said she was disappointed. So what do you plan to do with them?
So I would do more problems with this part where there's a break and then going back and filling that out. And we even talked about what are different ways we could figure out what would be on the 10th day or the 10th floor, or we worked on shapes, like we were covering hexagons, how many triangles would cover 10 hexagons. So we couldn't put out 10 hexagons and fill them out with all the triangles because we would run out of shapes. So they had to figure out what strategy could I use. So some drew like a T-chart, some just skip count it because it took 6 triangles to fill up the hexagon, so they skip count it. So there's different strategies that we've worked on. One thing I'm glad they didn't do, and I didn't see it in any of them, is so before there wasn't this 6 right here. It went from 5 and there was a break and it went straight to 10. So another strategy we talked about was if 5 plus 5 is 10, you double the 5, then you do exactly the same thing to the other side. You double the 25 to make 50. But then as the lessons went on, I added a 6 because I wanted to see if they understood the doubling part. Which number do you double? So then I threw in that 6, and then they doubled 6 plus, they didn't double this, but they automatically doubled the 30 plus 30 is 60. And I said, okay, boys and girls, I see that you use the doubling strategy, but does it work over here? Is 6 plus 6 10? They're like, no, it's 12. Okay, so what should you have doubled? The 5. 5 plus 5 is 10, then the 25 plus 25 is 50. So as I went through all of these, at least I know that they know not to double the 6, because none of them had 60 when I was looking at them. So, but a lot of them put 25, 30, 35, and they know there's this break. So that tells me that I need to do more with the break. But that's not a second grade skill. I mean, it's not a second grade standard. It's not. So I'm not too worried, but I still want them, I want more kids to have number 1 correct than what I have, because we've been working a lot with it.
It'll be interesting to see how they do on the
post.
end of union.
Yeah.
At the post.
Yeah,
Because it'll be the exact same problems, right?
yeah. So another thing this tells me is, like today, I started with the actual patterns, investigation 2, which talks about like the A-B pattern, and then like the clap, the body motion, clap, snap. So I knew they were gonna be able to understand that quick. So I looked at the next lesson, which was just patterns in general. And then the third lesson was skip counting by 3s. So I kind of meshed all 3 lessons in one, because I knew the first lesson was just gonna be too easy for them. But it went really well, like what I anticipated, that they were pretty right on with knowing patterns. So when I saw this, I was like, well, they knew it. They knew the patterns, but here they just didn't put it, because today we were working with the connecting cubes. We had a red, blue, red, blue, red, blue. And then another concept that was associated with that was we had to number the cubes, and they knew that all the reds were odd numbers. They knew all the blues were even numbers. So then I gave them three colors. So that part, they kind of struggled a little bit, but it was a good way to gauge how much they knew about patterns. Based on this, it looks like they don't know very much, but what we did today, they know a lot about patterns. So I think this just kind of threw them off.
Yeah, it seems like they know a lot, even with first and kinder, with connecting and making patterns.
Yeah.
But when it comes to reading directions and understanding what to do next in writing is where they sometimes get stuck.
But here, if you look at the writing, look at number 1 on page M16. If the pattern keeps going in the same way, what will the 11th shape be? If the pattern, and this is a kid's response, if the pattern keeps going in the same way, the 11th shape will be a square. He's correct, it is a square, the 11th shape. So they're able to read and understand what it's asking, and they're able to articulate it without even writing it. Yeah. See, here's another one using a different strategy. On my hundreds chart, I count it by 5s up to 70. After I skip count it to 14, because it's asking which day 14, how much money will be in the jar. So they're using the different strategies that we've been working on. And so I think the responses are a lot more, a lot better, and they tell you more.
They overlooked the first part, they just overlooked it, I
Yeah,
think.
I totally
Because the
agree.
hard part was, to me, I would have been easy for me to put the pattern, and the
I
hard
know,
part
to
for me would be to
explain, but they
explain what I
did the
wrote.
opposite. They're
But it's-
doing more
They were just not clear,
explaining.
I think, like you said. Awesome. Any other comments on that one?
I'm just interested in reading their comments, but like you said, that would take longer.
Yeah.
So you pretty much know that they're on the right track. And just those few things that you need to tighten up on the.
Yeah, and then I think for this investigation too, it has a lot of like little mini lessons on patterning, but I feel that they already know a lot. They know enough for me to kind of speed it up. But like for today, when I meshed the 3 lessons in one, I knew where to stop and then what to kind of reteach again or do more practice with.
Okay, Mariana, do you have any comments, please?
Well, I know that they're doing a good job, just writing all that, and I'm amazed at what they're doing.
All right, good. Before we move on, last week we looked at first grade work. You want to give us up? Do you have any follow-up?
Last week, we also did the pre-assessment on the post-assessment. So we just started the lesson today, and it's on addition, subtraction. So it's just reviewing and adding more strategies into today's lesson was a combination of 10, looking at different patterns visually and coming up with like 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 1 more to make 10. So all the patterns were in different layout of 10, then coming up with an equation.
How did the kids do?
They did well. And they had to use, look at the visual image. I'll hide it, take it away, and then they had to put the counters as they saw it. And then come up with a number combination.
In the future, one thing I would like for us to work on as a group is kind of look at all the different addition strategies, subtraction strategies. What are some of the strategies that should be introduced and worked on and familiarized in kindergarten? What are other strategies that the students should know by first grade? Or when they come to second, what are the strategies that we should have, that they should have coming in from first grade or from kindergarten and so forth, so that when I get them and I'm introducing and then vice versa, any of us, if we're introducing like the hundreds chart or a number line, they should already know. And we as a group should talk about, well, this shouldn't be introduced till first or second, or this has to be introduced at kindergarten. So I think just like the hundreds chart, the number line, connecting cubes, 10 frames, all of those different things that we use as visuals to help kids understand numbers. If we could do that, and with the help of Debbie too, I think.
Well, we did that with Dr. Bob for reading. We talked about what you expected them to learn in first grade.
Kind of like the priority skills and priority strategies in each grade level.
So we can look at that in math together at a staff meeting. Do the same thing, identify what it is, what strategies you identify at each grade.
Upper grade keeps saying that they're not knowing their basics, so if they use a lot more strategies and we're using similar strategies or at a lower level, then going up higher, then they can get
It kind of depends on
better.
the grade, because the kids in fourth grade are still having trouble adding, knowing their addition facts, because I've been in there and they're still having trouble. But Queens, they use flashcards, but you would think that by fourth grade they would
But
already
in our
master that.
grade, see, we also have to be careful we can't just have kids memorize numbers. It's not about memorizing facts. It's about them having, if I see a 3 and a 5, I in my mind, I can visualize a hundreds chart or a 10 frame. If I have a 3 and a 2, I know I can visualize 3 counters here and then 2. Oh, that's a 5. So if we keep exposing the kids to all these different strategies, by the time they're in fourth grade, it's going to be automatic. But right now, our kids, the gaps that Queen sees in fourth grade, it's because they haven't had a real solid foundation. We're building that foundation, but we need to ensure that they're really, really solid in those. Like, even the way addition is introduced in second grade, 1 plus something, a number plus 1, number plus 1, but it goes into twos, counting by twos, or doubles plus 1. Those are all different strategies, and those are flashcards that I made for parents. Parents are like the best helpers that you could have. When I had my parent meeting, I said, this is what I would like for you to do. And some of the parents are like, oh my God, I wish I would have learned my facts. I don't even know my facts. I mean, they're adults and they admit, if I had learned this way, I would have been better at my facts.
Well, Barbara, you're right on. That's what you worked on today, is friendly numbers, getting up to 10, right?
Yeah.
And I see
Yeah.
you do
So
the
we
same thing in your
We
classroom.
do a lot of combinations of 10, and they're really good at it. And, we're working on the inch squares, like you said, we're doing that, like we did squares. And then today we did 3, there's squares,
The layout.
the layouts. And then I asked them, and we did 6 today. And I will ask the children, well, what do you see first? They say, oh, I see a 3 here. Okay, what do you see again? I see another 3 here. So 3 and 3 makes what? So we're doing arrangements. So we're getting into this is like just our second week of doing this.
See, that's where they're going to get familiar with, I know 3 plus 3 is 6, because you provide them with that visual.
Yeah.
And even, you know how Debbie used to do subitizing, where you just have dots in different places of a card, you show them, and they tell you the number of dots, but they also tell you what patterns do you see. And I did that with my parents. This is kind of some things that we do with your students. And so I think doing those, looking at patterns and seeing the number.
Yeah, and just showing the dots. Just showing the dots through like 1 through 10. It's just, there's just like so quick now.
So right now, we're trying to teach them strategies like combinations of 10, 2 plus 8, 10. So when they get into fourth grade, then when there's a 18 plus 12, oh, I have a combination here, that makes 10, and there's a 10 here and a 10 here, that's 30. So we want them to be automatic, not just the simple, small numbers, but then when we add double digits.
They sound good in a whole group, but again, it's that mastering and individual assessments that I think we need to, or I need to stay on top of. Because
That's very important. It's like when you do your reading, and I know that we're encouraging for you to keep track of what they're reading and listening to them read often. Like we're trying to do it at least weekly, if not more.
Yeah,
It's the same thing with
that's-
math, you know, we should be able to see how they're,
Assessments for mastery.
you should be checking, it'd be good to be able to
At
monitor
least
what's
try to
going
do
on.
5 kids a day, just pull them to the side and,
Yeah, but not specifically their assessments, If we make our own,
That works.
for those
That's even better
strategies.
because you know specifically.
then we
what
can
they
use
need.
it across the board again.
and it, like if we identify the strategy and then you assess the kids on that particular strategy, then that kind of tells you which kids still need more
Yeah.
reinforcement and which kids are automatic.
You do that when you guys do the calendar, I know you use money. When after 5 pennies, you change the 5 pennies to a nickel, and 2 nickels to a dime, and so you're
we're
always
trading.
working with base 10. So all
And
those
it's
things help the
beyond the
number
first
sense.
grade expectations. Some will get it, some won't, but they're exposed to it, so.
And if they're exposed to it daily, and you do it every day, and they are picking it up, yeah.
That's where we use the subitizing it with the cards.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
instead of just asking them what's the arrangement, what's the total, I ask them for the combinations now. What do you see? 3
Yeah,
plus,
the
whatever.
program we call quick images.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
With them, just-